would you mind if we touch on that and try and find out like where does that come from? Because in my mind, I'm like, I was trying to justify, I was like, not justify, but understand why I went to that. Because I'm not a violent kid. Like I love everyone. I'm a very like physical, like a physical person. I like meeting people. I like seeing people happy. So that was a big like change in my personality at that stage. I was like, this is not who I want to be at all, and it scared the crap out of me. And I'm like, I started blaming. I was like, well, it's TV. Like, I removed myself from watching TV or movies and stuff because it was always aggressive. If you see someone who is not getting the respect that they feel that they deserve, they automatically, as a man, result into violence. Like that's how you demand respect because you show your superior physical dominance, which is like so stupid. It's ridiculous. But that was like how it was portrayed to us as kids, especially being from South Africa. Like
Yeah.
the way you show you're a man is becoming an engineer, becoming physically dominant. Like that's how you show you're a man, which is absurd, but that's just how it's been the
Yeah,
tradition for
it's
so long.
totally cultural, I think, and especially when you're younger, everything you're such a reflection of. You're just like this blank canvas that is a reflection of how you've been. I almost say brought up, but also with external like media influences. So I don't mean just parents when I say brought up, and and yeah, and if you keep getting brought up like this, or even if it's we do a lot of glorifying of hitting bullies back in society. I think there's lots of like YouTube videos of like
Karma videos.
karma videos
Yeah.
and that. And I remember Justin Bieber brought this like big kid on stage who was getting, it was like a terrible video of this kid getting bullied, and then he like smashed this other kid, and then Bieber like brought him on stage and was like, yeah, you're the bully hitter or whatever.
Yeah, no.
So stuff like that.
Hit bullies back with mental health numbers.
We gotta understand like where they came from, like because that's the point. Is like the only reason they're hurting someone is because they've been hurt
Because they're
themselves.
hurting themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
they
it's
don't
so
know how to
hard.
express themselves.
I think it's so hard to see that, or like even to know about that. Like, there's no way that when I was a kid, like I had those facts and those numbers, or that I cared about those facts and those numbers about mental health, or like what that bully's going through. Because all you can see and all I could see when I was growing up and got bullied a bit was that I was being bullied, and it made me feel like shit, you know. And
Yep.
that's all you really see. And I think it would be as much as it's like, oh, we need to educate kids and stuff like that. I don't know if that's necessarily going to help, because when someone is bullying you and you feel that shit, you know, you do not care what that bully is going through. You know?
Yeah,
I feel like it needs to be socially acceptable for kids to be able to them to step in immediately.
yeah, that's true. That's definitely true.
Yes, I agree.
A lot now, it should never get to the point where you feel so backed into a corner where you need to physically stand up for yourself. And I know that's incredibly instinctual for kids, because for the last 10,000 years we've been doing our talking with fists and swords and no, it's only last like 500 years where we've been told
trebuchets.
No, like last
I'm getting bullied by
100
Johnny
years.
at school. I'm gonna bring my catapult to school.
Louis.
Just yeet out of here.
Katana, an axe, a sword? No, catapult.
Well,
now
they
they
did that like my school back in.
Now those kids bring guns.
They bring like an actual axe because they started having like it was a very violent school. Like we had once, like it was early in the morning. It was like a Monday morning, beautiful day, and then my mate just got stabbed because they had like two Kiwis came to school, but they weren't part of the school. Walked up, started like mobbing one of my mates, and then the other mate like ran up and pulled out like a shiv, and then that I turned on and then started getting him stabbed. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then like it
Was he
escalated
alright?
to another one. Yeah, it was fine. Yeah, just went to the hospital for a couple of days. But like then there was another one where like it was a dance festival and they're trying to like reduce violence. It was this program they're starting where instead of fighting with your fist, like you fight through dancing, which is like the coolest concept in the
That is
world.
so
So instead of
good.
like selling your like your
just
heat
got
on the
served.
dance floor. And then clearly the guy didn't get the moment, and he comes to the festival with like a flippant axe because he got mad at another guy who
wow.
like started flirting with his girlfriend. I'm like, why do you
my
resort
gosh.
to an axe? And you're like 15 years old. Where on earth did you get an
Yeah.
axe from?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Fresh take an axe to woke.
Gosh.
It's like that Netflix show. It's like that Netflix show that I started watching. It's just like this guy saw, it's like a school grounds, they're seniors, and he saw like a couple of boys bullying another guy, and he just walks up to them and just like kisses one of them, and it's just like you know, like you felt the connection too, and then just made the whole like everything
Diffuses.
just like
Yeah.
awkward, and it was just so good, dude.
Mm.
It's
But
just
it's like the confidence. You have to have that confidence in yourself and like who you are.
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
but that's the funniest thing.
I
That's
think
great.
I've seen some videos like that that are really encouraging, and like there'll be dudes like scrap out the front of a restaurant or something, and the waiter will like run out and like offer them pizza or something, and it like totally resolves the issue. I always find that
Right.
kind of stuff funny and encouraging. But I find that
Kind of like one of those like to completely distract them from the topic. It's like
Yeah.
it's like kids, you know. I think
it's
I
like
think when you're
surprising.
in that situation, you're relying upon like some really base human instincts, you know.
Mm.
Yep.
And you go back to like a child that's crying, for example, and they're just upset. Sometimes they don't, or like a baby that's crying, they're just upset. They don't necessarily realize or understand what they're upset about. So if you put like a color picture book in front of them, they get distracted. You know, and it's the same thing. Like you're relying on such base instincts that, like, if something distracts you, even for a moment, you kind of like regain your head and your composure.
Yeah. I often find it's helpful to explain to the younger, I mean, not the younger, the older students and people that if you want to have like if you want to think about your like lasting impact on the situation in the world, it's a good thing to do to try not to teach people to continue. So if you're hitting someone back, you're just reinforcing that. Maybe they might leave you alone, but they might go pick on someone who's a bit smaller. So you're reinforcing that physical is the right way to do things. And then where does that person go? You know, they go bully someone smaller. Maybe they grow up and they get into an abusive relationship as an adult. Not a good way to keep perpetuating the problem.
So it's such a primitive like fallback basically. As soon as you feel threatened, you fall back to that primitive nature. You get angry, your judgment gets clouded, and you're like, well, I can't react. I'm just gonna punch and hope for the best. You just start swinging, and you're like, why? And then literally, like majority of people I've spoken to that's been in fights, like 5 minutes after, they're like, why was I fighting? Like, what did this achieve? All this achieve is like, okay, I've not got a bruise. He's got a bruise. I'm gonna see him again tomorrow, and then it all starts in the beginning. Like, why can't we just talk about this? Like, hey, I feel upset when you do this. I feel upset when you do this. Oh, let's have an agreement. I'll buy you lunch, and we go from there. Like,
which is what most adults would facilitate if they got involved. But the problem is when kids or when people don't have someone get involved to help them out. You know, it just keeps on escalating basically, or like kind of thing. Instead of like, as soon as you get an adult involved, they'll be like, okay, cool. First things first, you remove yourself from the situation. You know, and then we need to start some sort of reconciliation where you guys let each other know, like you talk, use your words.
That's kind of like my experience like that is exactly like what you said. Like my parents, like if I ever got into an argument, I'd tell my mom, be like, hey, this kid's like being a bit of an idiot. He's like telling me these stupid things, blah blah blah. Like I hate him, I hate this, blah blah blah. And she'd be like, don't feed them, don't give them ammo. Like stop as much as you can. Like if you reply to them, you're just gonna get a reply back. Like if you just give them their final warning, like, hey, I've had enough of your crap. Like this is my final saying. See you later. Like that's a really good way. I've used it so many times in the past. Just give them their final, like tell them what you want to happen, like what you're kind of like how you're doing things, and then that's it. They're over and done with. And a lot of the time with the physical aspect as well, it may be personalized to me because when I was in school, from like grade 7, I've been 6 foot since grade 7. So a lot of my fights were very short-lived. Because anyone that tried to fight me, like immediately just like I don't want to be like the guy, oh, I beat everyone up at school because I was so tall. Like no one started fights with me because I was so tall. And I guess that's something that a lot of people like kind of don't realize is when you're, fighting someone or you're having an argument with someone, you don't see that. You don't see there's a difference between you. Like if you start a fight with someone way taller than you, obviously you're not going to do it. So words are the best thing because that's a level playing field for everyone. Everyone has a mouth. Everyone has a brain. Not many people are 6 foot. Not many people, are taller than you, kind of thing. Like, like that's like the basis of how you probably should start every or end actually every fight is by just talking.
That's a really good idea.
I think a lot of it comes down to as well how you're raised, and like it sounds like you were saying that like your parents kind of encourage that, Louis.
Yeah, my parents told me you're going to kill someone if you fight them, don't.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah. I mean, that's
I
a
was
gr-
just
that's a
like, I was always kind of half scared if I was like, oh, if I hit him real hard, maybe I don't
maybe
want
he's
to
gonna
try
kill
that out.
Well, I mean, it's true. It's not. They're not incorrect by saying that, even though you're, you know, like you can not mean something. The amount of people that go to jail for manslaughter because they thought that they were punching lightly or something, and then someone hits their head on the ground and like dies.
No, that petrifies me.
Yeah, but it's really good that your parents like instilled that in you, and I think a lot comes down, a lot more responsibility once again. Like I feel like we touch on this at some point in every podcast that we do, comes down to parents and their responsibility to teach their
100%,
child
yeah.
how to react and also how things are dealt with in the home. You know, like if a mum gets really aggressive and angry and shouts and stuff when she's angry, you know, the kid
That's
is
just
probably
gonna
going to
reflect
manifest
on the kid,
that
yeah, 100%.
instead, or like if they're hit when they're doing things wrong, you know, they're potentially going to manifest that when someone else is doing something wrong. They go, well, they need to be physically punished rather than being like using their words and being calm and
My
controlling.
mum
You know,
does
like,
this.
is
It's the
how
right
you
thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of responsibility for physical bullying comes down to parenting.
I know you
Yeah.
had
Because
some.
they have no previous experience too, so it's just like they're only going off what they know. And if their parents have taught them that, oh, if you do something wrong, you get a smack on the face, like a smack or something like that, that's just gonna, you know,
It's terrible.
Very disgusting.
Yeah. But like even like touching on what you just said, there's like with my mates when I first like again come back to Australia, because that was the most like recent experience that I had with bullying, is experiencing that and like different social cues. Because in Australia, how you show your affection to one another, like just bros to bros, like you insult one another like that, like that relationship there was completely different to me. Where in South Africa, you just like you show respect to them and your affection to them by having as little interaction as possible and respecting them as like, okay, they're a good person. But in Australia, you touch on the things like, hey, oh, you've got a big nose or you've got big ears. Like you take the piss out of one another, and that shows like, hey, I noticed you in a sense.
picking up cues. Yeah.
And that was a big thing when I first moved here. Then one of my best mates now for like what 14 years.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to cover actually, is the ribbing that happens between young lads and where that goes, because it is very natural, and it is an Australian culture, like you said, Spice Me, where we kind of like break each other down a bit, and you do that with your good friends, but there is a lot of times that it doesn't go super well.
I have a bit of a theory on this, just because I mean I got bullied quite a bit growing up, just because I was always the smallest in the room. Through early years
and
of
now
high school.
you're really tall.
How does that happen? You're taller than me.
Yeah.
I know. Well, when I'm in between 15 and 16. Between 15 and 16, I went from being, so at the end of the last year I was the shortest in the year, and then at the beginning of the next year I was the tallest in the year. Crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But anyway, and from that, obviously I got a sense of what it was like to be the one that like really got bullied, and I was always like pretty headstrong and confident in myself, or like confident internally. I didn't portray that confidence externally yet, but and I knew that I could handle it. I knew that because I got bullied quite a bit, I was like, okay, I got a bit of I've got an alright head on my shoulders. I can cop being bullied. And so what I used to do growing up is I used to make myself a target, and I still probably do it. I probably don't do it as much these days, but I used to make myself a target for ridicule, because I thought in my mind, I was like, look, if I know I can take it, then better that people are bullying me or targeting me rather than targeting someone else who might not be able to take it. So I've kind of, because of that, I've obviously at certain points in my life got to points where I was being targeted or ridiculed by my mates probably too much, and it got to me, you know. And
you think of certain times.
Well, okay, look, I can tell a story.
Look, I'll tell the story and you can correct any. So everyone's on a bus, right? I don't know where everyone's going on this bus.
Were you there?
It's just one of those things where it's been told so many times, and I'm in part of that group that I feel like I was there, but at the same time, I don't think I was. But anyway, I'm just gonna say I was there, and everyone was playing. Well, it was kind of a game where you just slap people like randomly for no good reason, and Matt
not just slap them, head slap.
Yeah, like on the
top-
head.
the crown of the head.
Yeah,
Bam.
that was the
Oh, like on the
on the top, which hurts.
On the top.
And
It
then
hurts.
the final straw for Woke was it Spud?
No, it was
um,
Matt. I was just.
Was it John?
John.
John.
Yeah.
Spud's brother just winded up this massive crown slap, smacked him so hard, there was water in his eyes, and everyone was laughing. Ha 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 ha! Good job, well done, John. Sat back down. The next minute, we turn around. He's taken off the headrest. You know those headrests which like it's two like metal prongs, and then like the cushion. He's taken it off. He's got the prongs, and he's coming out. He's about to like neck it, like just stab him.
Wow.
You idiot! Yeah, that's the extent of the story, basically.
Man, mate.
Yeah.
Damn.
Look, I mean, that's not exactly how it went down, but like that's the general gist of the story. Like I'd been kind of the target of it, and I got to the point where I couldn't handle it anymore, and I just snapped because I like the emotions like got too much for me. But back to my theory on like the ridiculing between mates.